myself as the in-between in many ways. For one, when I come to Oromia, I always felt strange. I left when I was young, so the culture, the way people talk, the way people do things, it's just foreign to me. When I go to the US, I feel the same way, even though I'm more have a better understanding of that culture, I still feel foreign there. So I don't really belong in either place. That's why I feel like the in-between of those two countries, in terms of culture, in terms of religion. You know, I'm Ifata, so I was raised in a different religion when I was young, and converted to Ifata about some 15 years ago, and so I feel like the in-between. In terms of the flag, that speaks for itself. I'm an American. I spent better part of my life, more years in the US than in Oromia, and that Baghdad flag is genuinely, truly, is an original Oromo flag, and the order is something that I talk about. I'm very passionate about it. And for example, on ODP right now is correcting on former OPDO, they have mixed up the order, and I feel like that's a curse. The mixing of the flag is a curse to me, because black on top.
What's black for you?
Black for me is everything. Black is who I am. Black is my God. Black is in everything. In fact, give me a second. I'll tell you about this flag, about the order of this flag. Why it's so important. In the Western culture, there is this narrative of blackness as darkness. Black, oh, it's the past. That's how the Western have taught us to believe that to be black is to be backward. But to me, into Oromo people, the black is the noun, is because if in this room white is the best. See, in the Western narrative, white is the best. See, in the Western narrative, white is viewed as something bright in the future, but actually white is the past. It's the ashes. If this room is white, we know exactly what is in that room. That's why white is the past, black is the future. Black is my color. Black is beauty, and is my color. Black is beauty, and black everything that I cannot even describe. To you. The order of that flag, you know how PDO used to have, you know, black on the bottom, white on top, and that is very cursing. Something I wrote about it.
They corrected it on the logo.
Yeah, and they, you know, they kind of corrected the inside, but their flag is still the same. And so it's very personal to me, and I don't like it. I feel like it's cursed, because we are taking with the Western narrative, black being the past, that, you know, ugliness and evilness is associated with the blackness, whiteness is associated with the future and just the brightness. So
one thing for sure, no whiteness without blackness, no brightness without darkness.
Every color comes with one black. And
also the cradle of humanity, Africa, the land of blacks.
Indeed.
But the sycamore tree on this cover page, what does that represent? What does that mean for you? Sycamore tree, represented.
So, as on the book you see the little girls, they are doing recha under sycamore tree. Sycamore tree is a tree that long before this modern big conference center are built, Oromo people used to meet under this sycamore tree, and it's called in Oromo, obviously, the Oda tree or sycamore tree. This tree is very huge, it have a very nice shade, and people that Bagadas and men used to meet under there to make very big and very important decisions, and it represents an Oromo identity, and that's why it is on the map.
Yeah, there is also saying hid the Oda kana hid the Oda gama. The Oromos are definitely intermingled and connected together. On this book as well, you talked about the Oromos in Kenya.
Yes, so if you see on the cover page, this map goes all the way to Kenya and
Tanzania.
Yep. So it goes mostly to Kenya. So see, when in 1884, when the Western decided that to colonize Africa, and they divided
the partition of Africa.
Yeah, the partition also. You know, everybody kind of took a a piece of it, which I also talk about it in the book. They took a piece of land. It's like, they divide Somalians in several areas, and they divide the Oromos in several areas. Oromos, it's not really divided by the West, but because the British took that land, and that part of Oromos became Kenyans, and the remaining became part of Ethiopia. And Ethiopia is something that, the word Ethiopia itself, is something that's foreign to us.
It belongs to the Kushite families, specifically the Oromos.
The Ethiopia?
Sure.
But the land, yes, but not the word, because the word is given to burn people. It's not just those areas, but the whole eastern part of Africa.
The burnt face.
The burnt face. So it's like, I don't consider the burnt face. I'm the chosen. I feel like God is...
Probably they mean the chocolates. Who knows?
But either way, it's because it has because the meaning is saying it's a burnt face. I am not burnt face, and therefore I don't really like the word Ethiopia personally. Ethiopia came to picture in 1930s. A lot of people associated with the Bible think like Ethiopia is in the Bible. No, Ethiopia was born less than 100 years ago. The term was born by Greek, and it means a burnt face. It does not belong to us. It is enforced on us. Forget about even the politics of I dislike the word Ethiopia because of the issues that I associated with the Oromo people. Forget that for a second. The word don't belong to me. I am not burnt face, so I don't like to call myself Ethiopia. I actually petitioned to change the name from Ethiopia to something else.
Do you have a plan to write about the Oromos in Kenya?
I do. We actually are working on some project. I have another project, growth project that we were working on. We are working with the Boronas in Nairobi.
And in this book, and about the concept, you talk about African women in general and Oromo women in particular, that they face double bigotry. What do you mean by that?
Well, you can even say triple bigotry, but I'll stick to double bigotry. See, this book was written about 4 years ago. It was published 2015, December 2014, but early 2015 is when I started touring book, did my tour in 2015. So at that time, the Oromo struggle is not like right now. So we have a really huge change in the past 1 year. So this conversation or this book is written from before that. At that time, the issue of Oromo was something very personal. I mentioned it, and I was fighting for the Oromo rights. I was fighting for Oromo voice. So as a Oromo person, I was struggling to be an Oromo. Within Oromo, I'm also struggling because I'm a woman. I don't have a voice. There is no platform for Oromo women that are recognized. I mean, there's a lot of conversation that you hear about, like without women, there's no man, Sinke and Abagada, things like that. But in reality, there's no platform for women. There's no voice for women. And every decision that you see is always men makes the decision and always implemented to women. So the double victory comes from there. I, as a woman, as an Oromo woman, as a Oromo and as a Oromo woman, felt a double bigotry.
So how then are you working to intervene that problem in Oromia? How do you contribute that way? That's why I asked you, do you write in Afan Oromo? That's what I said. If you don't write, it doesn't matter. How would you contribute to solve the problem?
Here's the thing, Anwam, my presence alone, my just simple presence empowers women. There's this saying, I'm going to paraphrase it, that when you shine yourself as a human being, just as a person, your light allows people around you to also shine.
The energy works.
Yes, just nature. So by me speaking, by me being woman, by me speaking some of the taboo things that I do, the way I dress, the thing I say, the word I use, empowers young women to aspire that she too can have a voice. And so a lot of time people ask me why I do certain things, but especially when I come in the media, things like that, things I do are very calculated for me. There are things that I say openly, and there's things that I don't say openly, but indirectly, I know it influences them because it does influence me. When I watch people like Hillary Clinton, for example, someone that I idolized, can't pronounce it, but that her presence alone gives me a hope that I too can be that. So How I empower Oromo women? By speaking up, by being a role model. And on top of that, I do have about an organization called Dhufu Foundation. It started about 4 years ago in 2014. What we do is actually we pay for school supplies for young girls in Adaba area.
In Adaba area.
Yes.
And
Been
Mr.
going on for 4 years.
From Masaza has also done that kind of thing, and this together can bring change. And have you talked to Michelle Obama ever?
So when I was working at the Obama's office, yes, on the office, but since she became a president and things like that, no.
No. And in your book also, you talked about Winnie Mandela. Let me again talk about it. How can you explain Winnie Mandela?
So
we mostly talk about Nelson Mandela, of course, the man who was trained by General Tadesse Birru here in Ethiopia. He was trained about on guerrilla fight and went back and then sent to prison for 18 years and trained actually on Robben Island only, and then totally 27 years in prison and became president of the Republic of South Africa, the first black president. And Winnie Mandela was at the back of him for success. But how would you explain that?
But here's the thing. Winnie Mandela was at the front of that struggle, not at the back. But at the end, because Africa value man, I'll give you one example before I answer again that one. I have struggled for Oromo for as long as I've known myself. I've spoken to thousands of people, I've written, I've traveled a great distance, I've spent my own money. When it comes, let me go to my village, to my city. If today I would go to Adaba, if my brother go, he will always have a more value. It is just the culture of Africa that no matter how much work a woman does, the credit always is not fair. It's because of that Winnie did not get that. So let me come back and answer about why I say about Winnie that. Mandela spent a great deal, 27 years in prison. During that 27 years, the struggle did not stop, did not wait for Mandela. Who paid? And Winnie Mandela, not as a woman, but as a man, she was the longest confinement served. She served 6 months by herself. Not Mandela, not any man. She was the only woman in this world that was served, was in prison for 6 months by herself, confinement, okay? She was beaten up, abused. She paid the ultimate price, but the ultimate gift was given to Mandela, something that I talk about. Winnie was accused for abuse. During the struggle, the nature of struggle requires some people to be killed, some people to be tortured, especially snitcher and people who sneak. She was accused of being a leader of a group that abused young kids, about 16 years of old. And because of that, she was found guilty and she was taken to prison. Have that been Mandela, have that been a man, she would have been a hero for doing that. Because the movement, the struggle she continued where Mandela was in prison, would have made her the Africa's hero. But because she's a woman, and instead of we as a woman, we as Africa, the world, instead of learning her tactic, learning her courage, learning her strengths, she had 2 kids at the time. When she was a wife, she was a mother, but she still, with all that responsibility, was the leader for South Africa.
Freedom fighter.
Freedom fighter. And she paid, and when she was in prison, she never backed down for a single night when she was getting beat up. But the history you hear, I love Mandela, I have no problem against it. But that hero belongs to Winnie. That recognition belongs to Winnie. Because if you really look at it, what Mandela have contributed, what Winnie have done in terms of education, in terms of just bringing the South African voice to that level.
But not only the Africans, but also the world recognizes Mandela. And also Winnie, of course.
But here's the thing though, there's always this. If you as a family, as a community, don't recognize certain people, the world cannot recognize it. So because South Africa put Winnie down, the world did not give her the status should have given her. Winnie don't belong there. Winnie belongs to the entire world. But Winnie, you have Mandela up here, you have Winnie down farther, God knows how far. But Winnie belongs way tougher than anybody, because the amount of struggle she pays out for South Africans is something that I don't even think South Africans themselves have great knowledge of how much contribution she have done.
May her soul rest in peace. Have you ever met this lady you appreciate in person?
Someone that I admire, but I did not meet her, but I admire, and it's probably seen on my book, is that I write about it. It kills me because she have paid the ultimate price, but she didn't get the recognition. Forget Winnie. I'm afraid we, my generation, the next generation, we women ourselves have believed in inferiority of ourselves, that men are better than us. Men are capable of leading, and we are meant to be followers, have embedded in ourselves that we don't have that confidence to believe in ourselves.